what are the things that data scientists, data analysts miss? Like, why do they not get a job? Today, our guest is Choo. She worked at Amazon, at Instagram, at Bank of America, and co-founder of Interview Master.
The idea for van life started during COVID. I started watching van life videos on YouTube, and I was like, oh, I want to do this really badly. Learning a coding language is not going to be good enough. Like, these technical skills are worth nothing in an interview or to a hiring manager if they are not wrapped up in business sense and product sense. And my partner and I, none of us are engineers, and we're like, oh, we could do this. So we just opened up Cursor and we started building, and now we have Interview Master. But now with Cursor, product development is so much easier, but marketing is still like level 1000 difficult.
This is probably the most complete LLM course I've seen so far, from beginner to advanced developer by Towards AI. It's basically a one-stop conversion for anyone who wants to become an LLM developer, and the course has over 90 lessons to go from beginner to advanced in the field. It's both very practical and industry focused, but also quite technical, and you will cover a lot of technical topics like RAG, fine-tuning, agents, audio, and caching. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description, and don't forget to use the code AIStories10 to get a 10% discount. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the AI Stories podcast. I'm Leiser, I'm a senior data scientist, and I will be your host. So today our guest is Choo, who is the co-founder of Interview Master, a platform to help data scientists and data analysts land their dream jobs. Before that, Dawn has a lot of experiences. She worked at Amazon, at Instagram, at Bank of America. She even worked remotely for a couple of months and lived in a van, and was also a data science coach. So really, really cool career. We're going to talk about all of this in this episode. But yeah, very happy to have you here, Dawn. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe to the AI Stories YouTube channel, comment, share, and leave a 5-star review. So first thing I wanted you to ask, Dawn, is how did everything start? How did you get into this world of data and AI? How did you get into the field?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to be here. So my career started in college when I stumbled into a data internship. So I studied engineering, industrial engineering in college. So there wasn't much of like a data component to it. But when I was in college, I somehow got really lucky, got an interview and an internship at the time Facebook, now Meta. And that's how I started my career. It was a internship in marketing analytics. I started doing a little bit of SQL on the job, figuring it out, then decided I really wanted to be in data, but wasn't really sure how to break into it. So after college, I went into finance, which was data-ish, but mostly compliance, and didn't really love being in finance. And so I really wanted to get back into like a real tech data analytics space. That's when I started interviewing again. That's how I transitioned into a business analyst at Amazon, and then the rest of my career.
Okay, very cool. And how did you learn like SQL or all those things? Did you learn everything on the job, or did you take some courses?
So I learned on the job, but a lot of it was self-learning, right? I think we all know if you get even learning on the job means self-learning. No one's going to sit down and teach you how to write SQL. So I used W3 Schools because it's free and everyone loves W3 Schools. And I also used Data Camp to learn. Those were my favorite ones. We're also building Interview Master right now to help people learn SQL. So there's going to be a learning component coming out there. But yeah, mostly self-taught.
And so you said you worked, so you did an internship at Meta, then you worked in finance, and then you went back to more of a data tech job at Amazon. So yeah, how was it different? How different was your job in finance compared to at Amazon? Why did you prefer working in data and tech than in finance?
Yeah, it was so different. My finance job, I was technically building models. I was technically building risk models, but most of the job was compliance focused or regulation focused. As you can imagine, after 2008, there was a lot of the banking bubble burst. There was a lot of regulation put into place. And so one of my jobs, on my job really, I was one of those people who got a job because of that, where our whole job is to make sure that the bank is building models that are responsible. And so it felt very stifling. So everything we did was to check boxes for the regulators.
Okay.
So there's a list of requirements, and we basically go in and just check those boxes. It felt very operational and executional more than actually analytics or modeling. I didn't love that because I felt like it was stifling my creativity and my
Mhm.
critical thinking because I was really just, looking at instructions and then doing XYZ. And so I wanted to get back into tech because I felt like it was going to be a lot more innovative. That was my experience, at least working at Meta. I knew at that time that tech was going to be, well, at that time was much less regulated. Even now, I feel like tech is not very regulated. So there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot with data that you don't get to do in finance or in banking. So that's why I wanted to go back to Amazon. And my experience was a lot like what I was expecting, which was it was very self-driven and there's a lot of opportunity for innovation and creativity and really using data to do exciting new things, unlike in finance. I think finance is a great place to start. I'm glad I started my career there. I think the structure was helpful for me, and I still have a lot of best friends from that first job, but it just wasn't for me the right place to be long term.
So you prefer something a bit more creative and yeah, with less rules and compliance stuff.
Yeah, less rules is nice, but of course, a lot of data privacy stuff that we still have to take into account these days.
So how different was your job at Amazon? What did you do there then?
So at Amazon, I started as a business analyst. I was on the advertising team. I was the first business analyst on my team. My job when I was first hired in was to write SQL queries for account managers. So account managers and the sales team, so the account executives. And that was my whole job. My whole job was just someone has a request, they would put in a request like ticket, and then I write the SQL query and I'll pull the data for them. That's what I was hired in for. I very quickly realized, to my point earlier, that was neither creative nor innovative nor fun.
Mhm.
And so I found a way to basically automate that whole part of my job so I could do the more creative part of data and analytics.
Cool. What did you automate then?
Oh yeah, okay. So this is a long story. Actually, maybe it's not. Okay,
No,
so
I'm interested. Go ahead.
yeah. So because I was doing the same thing day in, day out, right, writing queries. And the reason they had to hire someone to write a query was because there was massive amounts of processing having to be done in the front end. So from the person pulling the data. So you can imagine the tables, if you think about like the medallion architecture, I think that's what it's called. It's like everything's on the bronze layer, right? Everything is very decentralized. And so it was very difficult for people to pull, or people who don't know SQL to pull their own data because the queries were so extensive. There were just a lot of joins and a lot of business logic kind of
Okay.
like embedded in there. But what I realized when I was writing those queries is a lot of times the processing is the same. Your final queries where it's different. And so I pitched to my executive at that time as a pet project. I said, I see that we can build pipelines. So how about I just build a pipeline for everything that we do, create a database where I have daily aggregated data, basically the goal level of an architecture. I didn't know those words back then, but I was like, we could just do the processing we do every day and then make it really easy for people to get their own data by building a tool on top of that. So then I pitched the idea. He's like, oh, great, go do it. And then I didn't do it for 2 weeks because I had no idea how to do it. I just had the idea and I decided to pitch it. And 2 weeks later, he was like, so how's this project going? And I was like, oh, you really care about this project. Okay, maybe I should go do it now. And I was like, oh, it's coming. And then that weekend, I just like learned how to do how to build a pipeline, how to build a database. The nice thing of working at Amazon is AWS is the same company. So at the start, I never had to worry about costs or
Mhm.
like pitching to an executive why we need to get this license. We just like use AWS, use Redshift. And that was really nice. So then I just started to build the database for the team, which was pretty cool because this like pet project that I started with ended up being my full-time job. And it also we ended up hiring, I think, like 5 people
Oh,
on the
wow.
team to work with this. And I also got my promotion basically from a business analyst to a business intelligence engineer because I had this like one crazy pet project idea and I happened to be very lucky to have an executive who cared and wanted to push on this project.
How did you feel like when you presented this idea to your manager? Were you confident that it would be something good? I think it's something not a lot of people do, like suggesting ideas. Usually, especially when you start, you get told what to do and you do it. So yeah, how did you feel?
That's a good question. So he was actually my skip level manager. Um, I don't remember being intimidated. I think because I kind of just threw out the idea. It's something I just like randomly been thinking about. I might have just said it at the end of this of a stand-up when I felt like, oh, I didn't have enough work to do this week. I'll just say I'll do something else. And so I just pitched it. I really didn't think much about it. Um, I think if I had put more pressure on myself to make this a proper proposal where I like wrote out what I plan to do, have a timeline, have people responsible, executive sponsors, things like that, I think I would have been a lot more intimidated. I think because I came in with it being a pet project and I was like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I wasn't even sure I was going to do it. I think that's why there was no pressure.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing of companies which allow their employees to have per project is like it's a no pressure project that you can work on. If it fails or if it's not really impactful, that's fine, you've learned something. And if it's really big, then it becomes a real project and can really have a big impact on the company.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, I got really lucky because my executive was is technical. His background is really technical. And so he was very supportive. He like understood the vision before I understood it. And that way I feel like I got very lucky in my career because this was like a pivotal moment in my earlier parts of my career.
And so you build this pipeline, you automate it, and then what's the impact of it? You don't need to write any SQL query anymore. How many people are using your work? Yeah, what's the impact?
So we built the database, but we also had to build a front end component, right? Because remember, the people I'm working with, my stakeholders, they're all non technical folk. So we hacked together a SQL querying tool, like a point and click tool where it will write the SQL for you in the back end without actually writing, like knowing how to write SQL. We built it all in Excel with VBA and like a database connection. And that's like the full end-to-end product. So the database all the way into the Excel spreadsheet. And I think we had probably 100, maybe 200 people using it. Um, Here and there, right? We like a
Mhm.
lot of times had to force people to use it because we're like, stop asking us for requests. You can get it here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of just training you have to do, like internal marketing for your tool. But we had quite a few users use it, at least for our version. And then we eventually did workshops where we taught other people at Amazon to do the same thing in their jobs. So our version probably had only a few hundred people, but I think across Amazon it was like a wider impact.
And you said this was a pivotal moment in your career. Why is that?
There's so many reasons. One, I think it was the first time I had pitched something and became like a real deal. And so it gave me the courage to go try new things and almost like believe in my intuition more so that I could have a bigger impact than whatever my current path was on. That was one. Two, technically, also like on the technical skills side, it forced me to build out a lot of tech skills like database design, database building, and data pipelining. Like all this work I had never done before. I've only been a consumer of data, so I use SQL to pull data, not create data, not any of the ETL pipelining work. And so this was particularly pivotal because it like taught me to do all of these things, which then helped unlock my career as a data scientist. Even though like a lot of data scientists don't build pipelines, it's like really good to have this this skill. I would say also having a project that you drive end to end, Like you had the idea, you took the initiative, you made it come to life, you pushed the marketing for it, you get people to use it, you monitor it, you fix it when it breaks. This kind of project is really helpful for if you want to move further up in your career, like whether get a promotion or move to a more
Mm.
technical role. And so this became one of my like capstone projects, the things I would talk about in every interview.
Cool, cool. No, very cool project, and well done for having this great initiative. So yeah, you do that, you get promoted, and then at some point you join Instagram, right? So can you tell me a bit about your experience at Instagram and what you did there?
Yeah, I loved working at Instagram. Instagram was like my dream company. So mentioned earlier, got an internship at Facebook when I was in college by luck. Like it was almost summertime, very late in the spring semester. All my friends had gotten internships. I somehow applied for this job and got the role. And so I had experience working at Facebook, but I didn't get an offer to come back that summer. I mean, the following year. So my summer internship didn't convert into a full-time offer, which was very devastating for me. But in hindsight, I think it was a blessing. So I gotten a taste of working at Facebook, and I always wanted to go back. And so it was like my dream to get back to Facebook. And at that time, Facebook had already acquired Instagram, and I really wanted to work at Instagram because it was a product I use all the time. I felt like it was a very polished UI experience and just kind of a cool company to work for. There was no real substance behind this dream. And so I interviewed a bunch of times at Facebook. I applied a lot of times. I don't even remember exactly what years they were, but I probably interviewed like 4, 5 times at Facebook before getting an offer. And then the last time, because I had the experience working at Amazon, I had a lot more stories and experience that I could like back up my abilities with. I finally got the offer. And the way Facebook works back then, now it's a little bit different, but back then, if you got an offer when you're pretty junior, you go in as a data scientist, you go through boot camp, and then you pick a team. And so whatever team happened to have an opening, you would go there. And I got lucky because Instagram had an opening specifically on Instagram shopping. And I really wanted to work on Instagram shopping at a time. So I like really, really got super lucky with this. They had an opening, I talked to the manager, got the role, and then I started working at Instagram.
Cool. And so what was your first of all, what is Instagram shopping? Because I don't think I'm using it. I don't really know what it is. And yeah, what was your role there? What did you do?
Um, Instagram shopping is not really big anymore. It was really, really big when I joined Instagram in 2019. It was one like
Okay.
the company's big initiative to get into commerce as another way to monetize. Um, if y'all remember, I think around 2020 or 2021, they changed the Instagram layout so there was a shopping tab where it's like a dedicated entry point. When you click on it, the whole page is about shopping and buying products.
Oh, no,
That's what
don't.
Instagram
Never
shopping
seen
was.
that. Never seen. I remember like on my usual feed, I could get like sometimes you see an ad or something of a clothes, and you're like they incentivize you to click, or sometimes someone is wearing a clothes and you could like click and see the clothes, but it was like on my usual feed. So you're saying it's like a separate tab, or maybe it was both?
It was both. So
Okay.
the shopping product was the feature that was available across all the surfaces. So kind of like what you said, if a creator tags a brand or takes a product from a brand, or a brand tags their own product, you can click on it, you can see the product on Instagram, and then you can buy it directly on Instagram.
Okay.
Then there were like specific entry points. So you could see the shopping media on your home feed, on Explore. At that time, I think in Reels, two Reels was pretty new. And then the shopping tab, which we were pushing at the time when I was there.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah. So your question on what did I work on?
Yeah.
I worked on so many things. I was there for I think like almost 3 years on that team, and probably had like 5 different teams. The space was growing so quickly, and the company was investing so much money in it. It was just constant. There was a lot of shuffling around constantly. I started in the bottom of the funnel. So like once people find a product, how do you get them to convert? Right. So if you think of like an e-commerce funnel, pretty straightforward, like what's cart abandonment look like? How do you get them to buy more things? How do you show them more information so they're more willing to buy? How do you put in social proof? all the typical like e-commerce stuff. Then I moved to shopping on web, which was should we build out shopping features on www.instagram.com. So did that for a while. One of my biggest, most impactful projects in my career was convincing leadership that we shouldn't do that anymore. So we shut down that team.
Okay.
So no more Instagram on web, no more shopping on web. Still have Instagram on web. And then I moved over to performance, which was one of my pet projects, which was performance is basically how fast does things load, how often do things crash, how much capacity do we use. And I did that and I like spearheaded the whole shopping performance team. And that was probably like the most fun thing I did while at Instagram Shop.
Yeah, let's dive into your the most impactful project then, or the coolest one, the last one. Which one do you prefer?
So there's a meme is that meme? I don't know if meme's the right word, but there's a belief that to be a data scientist, the most impactful things you can do is to spin up a team or spin down a team, right? So or like get leadership to invest in a product or divest away from a product. Um, so I kind of did a little bit of both at Instagram shopping. I would say the more interesting to me one was performance.
Mhm.
So again, performance is how fast do things load, how often do things crash. Um, Basically, it was a space that no one thought about at all. And when we were launching the shopping tab, it became particularly important because no one was thinking about it, but it was me, a data scientist, and it's me, the data scientist, and a couple of engineers who were like, oh, this is like important. We got to convince leadership to pay attention here. So we did a series of like analyses and experiments to show the impact of better load times on the tab. It was basically one of those things that like everyone knew was important, but no one thought it was a priority. And so we like did a series of experiments. There was like a lot of very interesting things you can do here, like latency injection. So when someone goes to a page, you can artificially add time
Mhm.
in the code that just says like a timer, like wait an extra 400 seconds. So you can imagine we like run the experiment where we plot out basically some people get 100 seconds, some people get 200, all the way to 1,000. And you can see the impact of load times on whatever your downstream metric is. Abandonment usually tends to be the best downstream metric. And so we're ultimately able to find pretty big revenue wins from performance, like almost 10% revenue wins
Oh.
if we were to accumulate all performance improvements. And so we're able to like get the leadership to invest in a whole performance team. So then I started working on shopping performance with like the few engineers that I worked with, and it was so fun. I loved it.
So you started by doing some kind of A/B testing in some sense, or ABCD testing, where you give different experiences to different customers, you collect all those metrics, and then you do an analysis on what's the impact of latency on any metric, including revenues, for example.
Yeah, sort of. But I think the thing about Facebook, Instagram is like there is so much volume, both in terms of the users and in terms of the amount of change that the company's making. It's never just like one experiment at a time. So that was one of the experiments we run. But there's a whole series of different experiments with different levels of impact that we just kind of pulled together to be able to tell a complete story around what's the impact of performance on business metrics. But that experiment was a particularly interesting one.
Okay, no, super cool. And keen to understand a bit more, like, so what, okay, you do this analysis, you get this impact, okay, X latency. If we decrease latency, we can increase revenue by 10%. What do you do then? You convince stakeholders to work on improving latency, and what are the KPIs that you improve to generate 10% more revenue?
Okay, so very interesting question. So yeah, so you start by gathering all the information, right? And then in addition to like gathering the impact, you tie that up with potential initiatives. So it's not just like improving latency by 100 milliseconds, increase revenue by 1%. It's also like it's that plus to increase revenue during improve latency, we can do XYZ tasks or improvements. Um, So you take that, then you go to leadership and you say, hey, we have this idea, basically. Here's why we believe this is a good idea. So that's like the top line impact that you want to drive and why you believe you can drive that top line impact based on your past experiments,
Mhm.
based on external research, and then based on a series of backlog of ideas that you have. And then you want to generally put it up against other teams' work streams, or you put it up against your team's goals, right? So if the team's goal was to improve revenue by 50% that year, which is, I think, pretty fair for a new product. You can say, like, we can help you hit 20% of the goals if you just invest in this area. And then you basically talk to them until they want to listen to you. Usually it's a lot easier when you have these hard metrics and you have the business metric, like the top line business metric in mind. So it becomes a lot easier to convince them. At the same time, we tried the way we did it was we went from the top level, like leadership level, and then we also started from the bottom, right? So performance is something that every engineer should care about. So we started going to different engineering teams and we're like, hey, if you improve this much, like we'll help you. Obviously, I'm not the technical engineering
Mhm.
person, the engineers are, but we're like, okay, if you change this thing, this improves your metrics by X amount and help you hit your goals by X%. So we started doing it from both ends of the spectrum, right? So tops down and bottoms up. And ultimately, it takes a long time. I mean, it took us probably, I don't know, 12 months, maybe 18 months from when
Oh.
we first started the work stream, yeah, to when we got like a proper team. But at the end of it, it was like 5 data scientists or so. No, was it 5? No, I think it was 3. 3 part-time data scientists working on performance, and almost every engineer worked on performance. And performance was like the one thing that every team could not move. Like you could not sacrifice performance for team metrics. Um, yeah, generally, I think that's how it works, right? Just like takes a lot of patience and perseverance to get people to pay attention to you.
Very cool, very impressive. So you talk to like, yeah, you talk to the top leadership to show them your experiences and try to convince them that this can have a big impact, but you also talk to the bottom, like engineers, to make sure that, yeah, it to convince them as well. And then how do you convince the rest, like between those engineers and between the top? Like, I guess they will talk to the top managers, will talk to their report and will say, oh, that's a good idea. And the engineers will talk to their managers and say it's a good idea, and slowly they will convince everyone.
Yeah, it like starts to meet in the middle, and you also do a lot of just like events and like team meetings. Present your topic as often as you can, so everyone's kind of thinking about it. So no one's hearing it for the first time from the leadership or from bottoms up, right? Everyone's hearing it for the first time from the team that knows it best. Um, And yeah, ultimately it meets in the middle. To be honest, I don't remember the mechanics of how it all works out. But the buy-in was slow but concrete. Like it was definitely happening. It was just really, really slow.
Yeah, no, and I agree with your point that you need to, if people hear an idea for the first time, they would be like, oh no, maybe not. But when they start hearing it more and more and from different people, then they will start to like it and agree with it. So I think it's very good idea, not only to try to convince the top managers, but also the engineering teams, and yeah, talk to different teams to make sure they appropriate themselves the idea, start talking about it. 12
Yeah.
months is a lot. Like, did you not get discouraged at some point? And
It was also my side project. It was not like my
okay.
main job. Remember what my main job was at that time? Probably web, which I was talking about earlier. And then I did ranking for a while, like algorithms, for a little bit. But the performance stuff was always kind of like my side project. So it's like if it didn't work, we can take a week off or 2 weeks off, regroup the engineers. Um, yeah, it was never too discouraging because it never felt like my career was on the line or my performance review was on the line. It was like if I did this well, it would be really good for my performance review. If I didn't do it well, then we just won't talk about
Okay, no, yeah, that makes sense. And so you work at Instagram, you do all those cool projects, very cool projects that you worked on. So really like them. And then you decide to stop working in tech. Like, what do you do after Instagram? Um, what do you do between Instagram and founding Interview Master? I think there has been a few years in between the two, but yeah, what did you do?
I went smaller and smaller tech. So after a while, I liked working at Instagram so much. Like, truly one of my favorite experiences. I had really wonderful managers, loved the food and all the perks, and great friends, great partners, everything. But after a while, I started to feel really jaded because at that time, I think it was 2021 or 2022, Instagram was really pushing to be a lot like TikTok. And I just started to feel very jaded, where I felt like the reason I came to Facebook was because I wanted to do interesting, creative, innovative things, not to copy another company. I just didn't feel right anymore. And I felt like I had enough data science skills that I could go elsewhere and still be really effective. And so I started thinking about what was most important to me. And then that time, while I was working at Instagram, I started part-time dance school. So I was dancing. I used to be a dancer, but I just want to get back into it. So I started dancing like 15 to 20 hours a week while working full time at Instagram, and decided my passion was really in the arts. And so I went to Patreon, because Patreon is to help artists monetize their arts in a more modern way. And that's why I decided Patreon for a year. Then I changed my mind. I mean, I still want to help artists, but then I had this new dream of living in a van. And so Patreon was in office in New York, where obviously I'm not going to be able to build a van while I'm in New York, or live in a van if I'm in New York. And so I decided to go to a fully remote company. So I went to Class Dojo, which is an education tech startup. Did that for I think a year, and then it was just way too stressful. I think, but I was on the monetization team at Class Dojo, so I like was very much in a very high pressure setting. Plus I was traveling full time in a van, where it's a whole thing. If you're like living in a van every day, you have to think about where you're going to use the bathroom, where you're going to sleep, where you're going to shower, where you're going to eat. There's so much to think about, plus work. And eventually I decided, oh, and then I started writing content on LinkedIn. That also started growing pretty quickly. And so I felt like it was time for me to go out on my own and figure out if I can build my own business. And that's where I'm at now, 6 months in.
Cool, cool. Yeah, keen to dive a bit into your van experience. That's super cool experience. Like, how did this idea came up of living in a van plus working in a van? Why not just traveling? I guess you also wanted to make some money.
Yeah, why don't you just travel in a van? Because you know, that's a good question. On hindsight, I probably should have just quit my job and traveled. The idea for a van life started during COVID. I stayed in New York for COVID during the lockdown. So I started to feel really claustrophobic. And then I started watching van life videos on YouTube, and I was like, oh, I want to do this really badly. And then I met my now partner, and he was just like, oh, you want to live in a van? Great, let's buy a van and start building it. And it was just so mind blowing. I was like, okay. I guess it's like one of those moments where you're like, am I just going to talk about this dream, or am I actually going to live it? And so we bought a van. It was so scary, signing away all that money. Um, and then the first time we cut a hole in the van, like in the roof, and we're like, okay, now we can't return this van. Like, we can't resell it to someone else. There's a hole. Um, and that's how the whole dream came out. So we built the van for I think 10 months or so, 10 or 11 months. We holed up basically in a house in Atlanta. Like the whole, no, not the whole apartment. The whole living room was building material. It was just like wood and tools and nails and everything we needed. We built our own van, and then February 13th of 2024, we set out for the first time. Um, and then yeah, we lived in a van and worked out of the van. It was really, really cool. I think it's a lot, it's very stressful, I think, living in a van, because you have to worry about so many things that most people don't have to worry about. And basic safety, right? Like, or where to park. Are people going to knock on your door in the middle of the night? Is a bear going to come eat you in the middle of the night? Like, things you don't have to worry about in a house or an apartment. Um, but we got to go to so many different ski mountains. We have the Icon Ski Pass. So we got to visit so many mountains, so many friends all around the country. It was so wonderful. But ultimately, we decided, okay, it was time to focus on our business, because at the time I just quit my job and I was like, okay, now I work for myself. I got to be 100% focused on whatever I'm doing now.
I lived in a van for like 3 days and it was already enough. So I don't know how you managed to do it 1 year, but yeah, that
Where where were you?
it was in Ibiza during COVID. We rented a van with my wife for like, yeah, 3, 4, 5 days, and we just went around. And yeah, it was cool. But yeah, I felt like you like at night sometimes you're like, is anyone gonna knock? Is it safe here? Where do you
Yeah.
shower? So it's yeah, very cool experience. It was just 5 days, so I can't really complain. Had a lot of fun, but yeah, couldn't imagine doing it for a year.
Yeah, I think if we do it again, we will only do it for the ski season because we were dumb enough to buy a black van, which looks cool, but terrible in the summer because it's like basically an oven. So if we do it again, we'll probably actually I think we're gonna try and do it next ski season. Just take the van out to the West Coast, ski around like Utah, Colorado, California, Oregon, and then like head back east just for the winter. I think 3 months, very doable.
Any crazy story that happened in the van?
Oh, we got some good stories. So early on, because we DIY'd the van, and none of us have used a power tool before, right? Like my partner has probably used a drill for like 30 minutes. I probably used a drill for like 5 minutes in my entire life. Um, so we DIY'd the whole thing, and it really started to show when we got on the road. So one day we're driving in, I think Arizona or New Mexico, and we started hearing this sound. And we're like, it's like a clanking sound. And we're like, it's probably okay. And so we kept driving for 90 minutes. We get to our destination, almost our destination. This old lady drives around, pulls us over, and she's like, there is something hanging off the bottom of your van, just dragging on the ground. And we're like, oh crap. Turns out our heater had gotten loose and was just dragging on the freeway for 90 minutes. The heater that we need to sleep with because it's freezing outside. Yeah. That was pretty bad. But we also had some really cool experiences. I'll send you a video of like these like we're driving in Yellowstone, I think, in Bozeman, in Montana. And just out of nowhere, we see a herd of American buffalo
Wow.
just like on the road. And we're like, wow, this is like the van life we were hoping for.
Yeah, yeah. Send me some pics. Really, really want to see that. Maybe you will convince me to live in a van for a year. Maybe not.
Yeah, okay, I'll send them to you. Maybe I'll change your mind.
And so, okay, after this cool van experience, you decide to become a founder and launch Master Interview Master. So, yeah, tell me a bit about this. Why do you decide to launch Interview Master? What is it? At which stage are you at now?
Yeah, so I started writing content about data science, and then I started doing helping coach people into getting the data science jobs that they wanted. And if I felt like it was really hard to scale my impact, right? Because if I could, I would help a lot of people every day at a low rate, like a cost rate, um, and be able to have a broad impact. But obviously, I'm limited by time and energy. And so my partner and I started talking about what would it be like if we wanted to take at least a part of what I do for coaching, like data science and data analytics coaching, and make that a low cost self-service platform. And so we started brainstorming ideas. We had a whole bunch of ideas, but ultimately we decided on doing Interview Master as the long-term vision being this is a one place you'll go for all things data science and analytics interviews. But we started specifically with SQL, which is like the most common interview that I've had, and also the most common skill among data professionals. And so we started building Interview Master to basically be a place that you can go for mock interviews, like automated mock interviews, so that when you actually go to a real interview, it will be a lot more familiar and less intimidating. So there are a couple of problems we're trying to solve, which is one, people need like customized feedback, like what I would give them in a one-on-one coaching session. How do we automate all of that? And then also we felt like the questions that are out there on like Leak Code are not hard enough, right? Because I do so much interview coaching. I get a sense on how difficult like SQL interviews are across different companies. And I just felt like a lot of clients were just not prepared for the level of difficulty of SQL interviews they should be expecting. And then at the same time, of course, all this AI vibe coding was happening. And my partner and I, none of us are engineers, neither of us are engineers. And we're like, oh, we could do this. So we just opened up Cursor and we started building. And now we have Interview Master.
Yeah, cursor is so amazing. I use it every day. Really love it.
Yeah, Cursor is so good. I can't imagine my life without it, to be honest.
And so, how do you have this automated feedback? Do you use LLMs to give like specific feedback to each user?
Yeah, we have like an agentic framework that we train that basically can evaluate queries based on the context of what it's given, right? So like the background of the company, the questions being asked, the data tables, and then it also understands the user's queries. And then basically there's a few different thought processes behind it, and then it comes together.
And you've trained your own agents to do that?
No, I shouldn't have used the word train. We are actually considered that, but I don't think it's really necessary right now to train an agent. So we have like a standard for how accurate we want our AI agent evaluated to be. And that's 95%. So we've been able to maintain that level of accuracy right now, just given out the box models because of the agent framework we did, right? So if you do like a single model, it like
Yeah.
just can't hit the level of accuracy. But in a world that we want to get it to like 99.9%, we might have to train our own. I don't even know if we will. I don't know if training is the right verb. But yeah,
Fine tuning the model, or
thank you. Fine tuning was the word I was looking for. Either train our own or fine tune. But I don't see a world that's necessary right now. I think as context windows are getting a lot bigger with these LLM models, it's been a lot easier to just like give it a lot of context, and then allow it to just think on its own using what is out of the box.
and so according to you, how is Interview Master different than other platforms? You mentioned questions are a bit harder. There is this automated feedback, which I think is really cool. Do you see other things that make it different?
Yeah, the three things I think are different is one, the questions are all based on real companies and real products. So in all the interviews I've done, right, whether it be coaching people or in the interviews I've been in, all interviews are going to be about the company that you're interviewing for. Like they're all real world problems and they're pretty ambiguous. And they're pretty challenging. So that's what we're trying to solve for here, making sure it's based on real companies, real products, sufficiently difficult, and usually with some level of ambiguity in it. And then the second thing is the AI evaluator and the AI coach. So we also have a coach that you can, use if you get stuck on anything, which I personally even like to use. So if I forget the syntax of like, how do I get the third to fifth letter in this string, right? Then I can just ask the AI instead of having to go elsewhere. Again, it has context in the question that's asking the tables, everything. And I'm totally banking on what the third thing is. Coach, questions that are difficult. Oh, and then we have a lot of practice questions. We have over 200 of them that I pretty much like gone through every single one of them. I didn't handwrite them. I like kind of generated them with a whole other agentic framework. But every single one has been like proofread and validated by me at least a few times over. So I know the questions are good, and there's a lot of questions to practice with.
Okay, cool. And so you mentioned also you wanted to have other, so SQL is the first one. You want to have other stuff in it. Yeah, what are the chapters you're thinking about? What are the topics that you would like to add?
So there's topics and then there's features. So for topics wise, we're hoping to I won't say hoping, we're going to get into Python and we're going to get into case study interviews. I'm really excited about the case study interviews because that's a big part of becoming a data scientist, right? You almost always have multiple case study interviews during your interview process. So I'm really excited about those.
Yeah, and sorry about this one actually. I when I was looking for jobs in Paris in consulting, there are so many resources on case studies for consultant and like business case studies, but technical case studies, I think I found like one or two online, and I couldn't practice. I had to call friends who were working at Quantum Black or BCG Gamma to do cases for me because I couldn't find any online. So I think that's super cool because it's just there aren't any. At least there weren't any like 1 or 2 years ago when I was looking for jobs.
Yeah, that's what we hear a lot too. So this is helpful. Maybe that's why we'll prioritize next. Okay, I'll definitely think about that. I think case study is probably one of the most interesting ones. We also have the statistics interviews, so kind of like wrapped up in case studies or can be standalone statistics interviews that are more technical. Feature wise, we have a SQL Learning Hub. So like taking a lot of the features that we have and my experience kind of helping and coaching people with SQL, automating all of that into a learning platform where you can go to for free. I mentioned this at the start. We're trying to take on W3 schools. So that's our big dream there. So yeah, we're a learning hub, and then we have a lot more features to basically simulate an interview and give you real-time feedback. And we also see it kind of being a place where you can get overall guidance on your entire data analytics and data science career process or like job search process. Um, yeah, it's just a lot to think about. A lot. The good thing is there are a lot of ideas. The bad thing is there's not a lot of time. So just trying to figure out always like what is the most important thing to prioritize.
So based on your experience as a coach, like what are the things that data scientists, data analysts miss? Like why do they not get a job?
I think so. It's a few different things. Actually, I'll boil it down to three. I think one, learning a coding language is not going to be good enough. Learning your statistics is not going to be good enough. Like these technical skills are worth nothing in an interview or to a hiring manager if they are not wrapped up in business sense and product sense. So you could know all the assumptions of a linear regression model, but if you don't understand what gets violated in the real world and what assumptions, when violated, you are comfortable with or how you have to mitigate them, if you don't understand this context, you're not going to be effective in a job, and you probably won't pass your interview. So being able to apply all your technical knowledge, whether it's SQL or Python or stats or machine learning, onto or like wrap it up in business sense. That's the number one thing. The second thing is communication. Communication is so important. I don't think people realize this. I think a lot of people think communication's an afterthought, but so I've interviewed as an interviewer for Amazon, Bank of America, Meta, Patreon, maybe? Can't remember. But every company has communication as a specific standalone criteria that they evaluate on, right? So it's ranked as highly as your technical skills. And so communication is really, really important. So being able to communicate clearly, succinctly, and in a very, very structured way. And then the third thing I would say is product sense and business sense, kind of related to the first one, but more in a standalone, like understanding business strategy and business metrics. How do business decisions get made? Who are the decision makers and how do you convince them? For this one, I always recommend this book. It's called Cracking the Product Manager Interview, which I know we're not trying to be product managers here, or maybe some of us are. But that book was a game changer for me when I was landing my first job. I read that thing like cover to cover twice. Maybe I'll go back and read it again. It was just so good. So I highly recommend that.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll definitely share it in the description then. Haven't read it, but yeah, it could be interesting. I think it's very important as data scientists to think more about product side of things. And it's a skill I wanna learn more about. So yeah, definitely even for myself might wanna read it. And if I can add also something, um you had 3 points. Another one I think, which is not a skill, is just something to do, is get a referral. Like for me that's so many people, they will just send thousands of CVs, and yeah, they will be lost in a pile of 1,000 or 10,000 applications. And so if I had one advice to give to anyone who applies for a job, is don't apply straight away. Like get a referral, talk to people, send 10,000 messages, do whatever you want, but get a referral, because you're gonna have like at least 10x more chances of getting the first interview. And so many people, they have good CVs, they are good enough, but they just can't get to this first round of interview. And yeah, if you can't get the interview, you're never gonna get the job.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a good one. Referrals, like for me, have significantly changed my chances of getting a first round interview. And then after the first round, that's on you too. convert that into an offer. But it's really hard to build a network. So if you don't have one start right away, like it can take years and years to build a proper network. But if you already have a network, definitely use it. I have a mentee who very recently just decided to quit her job, just didn't like her job. And within a month or 2 months, got like 7 offers, primarily just from using her network. I mean, obviously, she's a very, very, very good at interviews and very good at her job, and that's why she's getting those offers. But like really using her network gave her so many offers. My mind is blown.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, posting on LinkedIn is also something good because you get a big network and it gets easier. But yeah, personally, when I applied for jobs 2 years ago, I didn't apply to a single job without getting a referral. And if I have to do it again, I would do the same. I just would push as hard as possible to get a referral, but will not apply directly. Unless like no one from the company answers and I really need this job, I would always get a referral.
I actually think so. Try and find a balance. It depends on how much I want to work at the company. If I definitely want that job, but I'm like spammer, right? I apply to 100 jobs at a time. If I really want the job, I'll try and get a referral. Like I would absolutely get a referral. If I am not very sure if I want the job, I want to just go through the interview process and see if I like the people, then I'll just do like and apply on LinkedIn. I might even hit the quick apply button, to be honest. That's how I got my last job at the education tech company. I just applied. And then when I talked to them, I decided I really liked them and wanted to work with them. So it's not like I just like randomly
Mhm.
pick a company. But yeah, if you're not that sure if you want to work at a job, it's like a low risk, you know, it's a low risk thing to just put in your resume.
Okay, and so about Interview Master, like what are your next step? At which stage are you at? Are you hiring or are you currently just building things yourself? What are your plans for the coming months?
Yeah, we don't plan on hiring. We would love my partner, who's like my romantic partner and my business partner. We would like to bootstrap this thing ourselves. Um, and it's been really challenging, I would say that, but we are enjoying the process of it being just us two. So we probably won't. Well, when we would consider funding at some point, maybe, but right now it's just like we really just want it to be us two. Next steps is marketing. Marketing takes so much time. I think that's something that wish I had psyched myself up more for. Like now with Cursor, product development is so much easier, but marketing is still like level 1000 difficult. So and there's so many components to marketing, right? There is social media marketing, which I do a lot of because I'm a content creator on LinkedIn. There's SEO, there's email marketing, there's paid marketing, and I'm sure there's so many more things I'm not even thinking about. So marketing for me has been the most challenging part, but where we're learning the most and trying to find our footing. And so that's one thing we're really focused on. And then, of course, there's product development, which we split into two pieces. There's like the feature development piece, and then there's the content development piece, right? Because it is ultimately an education platform. So a lot of the product is good content. So my partner primarily does the feature development, and I primarily do the content development piece.
Okay, amazing. Good luck for the rest then, and we'll put a link to the platform in the description so that everyone can check it out. But looks super cool. Yeah, let's finish the episode with maybe one advice. If you had one advice for people to progress in their career, what would it be? Just one advice.
Um, what advice? I would say just be brave. It sounds so cheesy. I would say just be brave. I think you don't anticipate how much of your life could change or how much of your future could look how different your future could look if you just try to do the thing that you've always wanted to do. And I see that so often with the people around me who I just love and respect. My best friend has a thriving solopreneur business, and and I remember the first time she told me she quit her job, she was just going to do her own thing. I was like, "Oh, you are so brave." And a few years down the road, I followed in her footsteps. Um, and same with the story about, at Amazon when I pitched a project to my executive, you kind of just do it. If it's scary, it's like a sign that you should probably do it. And yeah, you'll see how much your life changes if you just try. Just go. Just go. If you fail, you fail. Whatever. No one knows. No one cares.
Well, Dawn, thanks a lot. It was great to have you on the show and chat with you. Have a great day in the US, and yeah, hope to catch up very soon.
Cool. Thanks, Neil. I love being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.